This is Social Leopards. I'm Bea.
And I'm Beth. A leopard is a solitary creature living in the jungle, but often not seen or noticed. Are you a solitary creature trying to navigate the social jungle?
This show explores loneliness and the many ways forward. Welcome to Social Leopards. Hello, Social Leopards. I'm Bea.
And I'm Beth. And today we have Megan Devito with us here on Social Leopards. So Megan is a life coach, and she empowers ambitious women to overcome stress and anxiety and to build resilience. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your journey on how you decided to become a life coach.
So it's a funny story, actually. I was a teacher for about on and off for 20 years. I say on and off because I took time out to stay home with my babies when they were little. I taught part-time for almost all of that 20 years, which was amazing. Whether it was just doing morning kindergarten or afternoon kindergarten instead of a full day, or if it was I worked 3 days a week instead of 5, I was always really blessed to be in a flexible classroom situation. But I also knew it was time for me to go. I knew that the school, I could teach anybody anything. And they said, "Are you sure you want to be done?" And I'm like, "You want me to be done. This isn't my place that you don't want me to be here anymore. Like, I just, when you're done." And so I was looking for something that would allow me flexibility that I knew I was just going to fall in love with and naturally be good at. And that's a big ask, isn't it? Like it's a big ask to say, what could I do that I would be really good at that would allow me to be flexible and do these things and still be a mom, still be a swim coach and do all of these things that I love, but to really be able to help other people because I knew that I could teach. And during this entire time, I was also in the process, I didn't know it at that point in time, I was also in the process of recovering from an anxiety disorder that I had from 3rd grade. And so I was hedging up on 40 years old at that point and starting to look at what do I want to do with my life? Where do I go? And just really slowly changing my habits. And I listened to this audiobook and she starts talking about working with a coach. Well, I had coached swim team for years. And I was like, coaching? What is she talking about? This is not coaching. Because I was thinking swim coaching. And so I found out life coaching. I'm like, wait a minute. I got to know more about this. So I really was in this searching period of my life, figuring so many things out without recognizing it and realizing that, wait a minute, I've been doing this all along with facilitating in a classroom where asking more questions rather than just yammering out answers. So I just fell into it and I was like, this is amazing. So I got my certifications and made my way out of the classroom and I've been loving it ever since.
Oh, that's a great story. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Social Leopards is born of the concept of helping people find ways from feeling lonely to feeling connected. And when we talk to people who describe themselves as lonely, we often hear about people who also at the same time share feelings of anxiety as their reason for feeling unable to move forward. From your perspective, to what extent do you see that same or a similar correlation between anxiety and a tendency towards feeling lonely?
Yeah, it's such an important question right now with where we are in history because we are in a loneliness epidemic.
Yes,
and
we
we're
are.
in an anxiety epidemic, aren't we? They go hand in hand. As much as I hate to blame all things on the pandemic, I really think that amplified something that we were going to fall into eventually anyway. It just threw us overboard. We're more connected than we've ever been. I could get on at any given time and connect with somebody in Taiwan if I wanted to. I wouldn't have to do anything. I'd just pick up my phone and I'm connected. But that connection is not the same as being truly, honestly, and authentically connected with other people. We're showing our highlight reels and we're seeing other people's highlight reels. And those things are just making us feel more alone. We are not having those really emotional connections or even eye contact and face-to-face. Leaving the classroom, I taught high school, for the most of my teaching career. And just watching those kids slip to a place where they can't look somebody in the eye to ask a question, or I don't know, you want me to call and make an appointment? I'm not, there's no way I'm picking up the phone to talk to someone. And can I just text? Can I do it online? So yes, we are connected, but we've isolated ourselves and we have this imaginary alternate reality where we think everyone else's life is perfect and we see their vacations, we see their houses, we see their, look at me over here doing this, but it's not real. So we've made ourselves feel so alone that we're afraid to even go out and find people. And that's really hard.
And do you find that your clients also struggle with social skill deficits because of this as well?
I would say that they think they struggle with social skills deficits. They don't. I recently did a phone call with a gentleman who, he was brilliant. He had his master's in chemistry. He had taught in Europe and in the Middle East and had recently moved to the United States. And he said, I'm sure it's because I don't speak English well. And I said, we've been on the phone for 20 minutes and I've not had any, not even on Zoom where I could see his face when he was talking. I said, I've not had any trouble understanding you. You speak really good English. I said, I don't think that's it. So I think we think that we do because we have these ideas of what our skills should be or what we think we can and we can't do, but we just haven't put ourselves out there to do it. So I think there's a big difference between thinking that you have a problem, but then actually having that issue. I would say for younger generation kids, high schoolers that I've worked with, yes. But for adults, we're just afraid that we're not as good as somebody else a lot of the time.
You're reminding me of a situation in my past where my daughter, she's not my biological daughter, she's my husband's daughter, but I call her my daughter. And she had a baby and she was feeling a little isolated and she had a lot of pressure on herself to be the perfect mommy. And all of these things were playing around in her head. And she was becoming very anxious about it. And she wasn't getting good sleep and all the other normal things that go along with being a brand new mom for the first time. And she one day just broke down crying. And it was because she was upset about being on Facebook, literally, and seeing all these perfect lives being shown in images and happy little comments, and she felt like a failure. And she's like, why can't I be that perfect mom out on Facebook and this and that and the other thing? And I think that's where it begins and ends, is because those are not, I think both my husband and I sat her down and said, look, nobody on Facebook is saying I had a crappy day today. They're all showing their best selves and touting their perfect moments, but those are just moments. Mm-hmm. And I think that gets in people's heads so much. And it's so easy to see the perfection out there. And it's hard to connect with that imperfect moment. It really does. It messes with your mind if you let it.
And to your point, I struggle honestly with exactly what you said. Not posting the most perfect picture of myself or my family. And I really don't post a lot until Dennis knows I've taken 25 selfies. Okay, that's the one. And it's so much effort that I just don't post a lot because, Yeah.
It's rough. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
Years ago, I was home with my daughter. She's 16 now, my youngest daughter. And so I was home with her when she was little. And I wrote a blog for a while. And I remember I wrote a blog post and I called it, I'm not Martha Stewart and neither are you. And because I would get these catalogs, right? Like I'd get Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware or Martha Stewart or Real Simple. And I would be like, look at my house. It's terrible. And then I realized that, wait a minute, nobody lives in this house. This is just a thing they set up to take pictures of. But we get caught in that. And before it was social media, where we didn't see our friends doing it, it really was just a catalog we got in the mail. You're like, gosh, I wish my house looked like that. I wish I had that couch. I wish I had all of the money to be able to do this or to make this amazing dinner on these beautiful plates where it's a setup.
It is.
And we're still being set up. It was just that before it was in a catalog and now we see our friends doing it. And we see people who are out there living life that we're like, why can I not do that?
Yeah, I agree. Switching gears a little bit, I reviewed your website before you came on the show, and I loved the way that you openly described yourself as someone who had tried all of the self-help books, tips and tricks, all the things, and you still felt like you fell short, which is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We interact with a lot of people who carry that mindset that I've tried and I've failed so many times that I'm just giving up. And it's hard when you're in that space. So what made you keep trying?
Oh, you're not going to understand.
Ah,
What the answer is? I quit trying.
oh, okay.
Yeah. If there's anything that I've learned that I see more and more, if I can feel anxiety rising in me now, I know it's because I'm seeing something that's making me think about being anxious. And the thing about being anxious is that it demands your attention and it demands that you act now because it is urgent, it is deadly, it's going to leave you alone and isolated or whatever your brain likes to tell you. And the more attention that you give it, the more it grows. So for me, with my backstory, my anxiety was almost entirely related around my health. I thought I had every single disease under the sun. I've never had any of them, but I was so sensitive to how I felt that I would just freak out. And so I would research, I would try and do all these things. I would go to the doctor, I would do all these things. And the more I did, the more attention I paid, the worse I felt, because you can prove to yourself that you're fine in the moment, but what about the next moment? And so for me, it really was, I started doing things to like really accidentally falling into recovery, where I was raising 4 kids and I needed a break in the afternoon. So I started taking walks. And I noticed that when I got home from my walk, if I decided I wanted to eat another cookie, I was going to do it. So I was probably walking for cookies at that point, but I wasn't anxious. I wasn't as anxious. And I really started paying attention to, okay, these are the things that I want to do. And back to that idea of learning what life coaching was, I was listening to an audiobook that had nothing to do with anxiety and everything to do with it was You Are a Badass is what I was listening to. And I'm listening to this, I want to be one, but I had worn that hello, I am anxious name tag for so many years that I didn't know. I'm like, I am absolutely not that. And she just said, worry is wishing for what you don't want. And I thought, who would do that? And I was like, oh yeah, me, I would do that. I would do that over and over again. So really came down to me not looking at those things that made me anxious. Instead of trying all the tips and tricks, it was me knowing one thing that I knew that would help me feel better and finding that one thing and using it instead of saying, oh, I'd better learn some more, because we know way too much. And I think that's part of the problem. We know what our neighbors are doing. We know everything that's happening in the news. We could go and Google any disease and any symptom, and we can know everything in 30 seconds. And our brains are not designed to do that.
Oh, you're bringing me so many memories today in this little tiny conversation.
Yeah.
After my dad passed away, I was sure that I had all of the symptoms of all the things that were impacting him and caused him to pass away. And I went to so many specialists. I'm like, oh, I got a nosebleed. I got to go to the ENT. And he had skin cancer. And so I had this itchy spot on my back and I was running to the doctor, and I went through that for a while. And I think that was more for me personally, part of my grief, me not processing my grief appropriately. I was focusing in on the things that I thought I would then have control over if I could just identify what the problem was. Mm-hmm. Then I could fix it, and then I would start to feel better. And it was just this vicious cycle in my head. And finally, I got to the point where I needed to get some help, and I did. And it was not long thereafter that all the pieces started to fit, but that just brought that memory back. That it's a very common reaction, I think.
Yeah, I think
think lots of people go through those things, so it's not wrong.
No.
But wow.
But I also think, and you probably know this, that there is a big piece of fear that's connected to anxiety, right? Because we're fearing something that maybe we don't even know what the fear is, but that fear is propelling that anxiety because it's the unknown. I know that my parents are in a difficult position right now. They're in hospice. And for a long time before we got to this point, I had so much anxiety, like what if he falls? What if she falls? What if he has a car accident? And we had to put all these things into place. And now I'm in a better place. We're still going through it. But yes, it was definitely that fear of the unknown.
Yeah. So brings me to another question. So there are a lot of people out there, and I get a lot of questions from just people, or we do actually, and they get told anxiety is, quote, just an emotion. So why is anxiety so real?
Yeah, it's not just it is just an emotion, but
Not
it's
just.
a chemical reaction in your body, right?
Right,
It's a chemical
exactly.
reaction
Right.
inside your body. And if we can take it away from the things that you do when you feel anxious and the thought, that's really where the emotional part comes in. But what I found is that it's not one emotion. It's not usually one. So to your point about your dad passing, you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with fear, you're dealing with sadness, you're dealing with all of these different emotions. It's like a knot of emotions. And it's just the idea of my body feels so anxious that my brain starts spinning stories, anything to solve for the way that I feel. And really the way that your body feels is a chemical reaction, and emotions are just a chemical reaction in our body. So it's what we think about how we feel that's the problem. So, and that's what's so interesting about it is that you can say, how do you feel? I feel anxious. Oh, about what? Everybody has a different story, right? So if it was just that simple, if it was like, I feel anxious because I think that Susie over there is looking at me funny and now she thinks I'm not competent at work or something like that. If that were that easy, we'd be like, Susie's not looking at you, problem solved. But it's not. It's about somebody's health. It's about somebody's parents. It's about somebody's kid. It's about driving. It's about getting sick. It's about all of these different things. And it all goes back to us trying to solve for all of these underlying questions. To your point about your dad, yeah, it is really normal for those people. Doctors tend to think that they get the diseases that their patients have because they know the symptoms. And as soon as they have one, they're like, oh, their brain starts spinning stories. So if we can cut off the feeling in our body from the thought process, that's really the ticket because yes, it is an emotion, but it's a lot of emotions that cause you to overthink. So anytime anything starts with what if, we just have to remember that's a guess.
That's true.
And so being able to use that to say, while I feel this feeling inside of my body, this really horrible, uncomfortable feeling that I do not want to feel anymore, because I won't ever tell anybody that it feels good or it's not a problem. It is a problem. And if you don't know what to do with it, if you don't have that stopping point to say, okay, anything I think until that simmers down, I'm not allowed to believe anything that's going on up here. Your brain will tell you the scariest, wildest stories ever. If you can just say, I'm not allowed to believe it, I'm not allowed to believe it, I'm not allowed to believe it, it gets easier to say, I know what's happening. And then we can cut that cycle. And when you do that, you're taking the attention away from the feeling, because any attention that you give that feeling, your brain will interpret that as, oh, that really was important.
Yeah.
And when it thinks it's important, it doubles down the next time and it makes a stronger reaction that lasts a little bit longer just to demand your attention. To your previous question, the less you do it, the more you teach your brain to not respond. Oh, it's okay, because everyone on this planet feels anxious sometime. But some of us just really are good at it, right? Some of us are like, I can drive this bus right off the cliff. and we don't need to. We don't need to. But it is really, it's a serious issue. It causes people to, it will take people down every time. And we see it all the time. But the solution isn't doing more, it's doing less. And that's tricky.
No, I like that perspective on that. Absolutely.
So are there certain types of anxiety that you deal with more commonly with your clients, or does it vary, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because therapists listening to your podcast right now are probably like, sit down, lady. And I get that, right? I'm not a therapist and I do not diagnose anxiety. Right. I do not treat people who have major anxiety disorders. I mean, if you are incapacitated and you cannot leave your house, I'm not your girl. You definitely need to go to a therapist. So most of the people who I help deal with that, I would call it low level hum, okay, where I'm just keyed up all the time. I just can't relax. Anytime I get ready to go talk to my boss, I feel like I'm going to get sick. I can't even do it. So they're stopping themselves from doing the things that they want to do, but they're still living very quote unquote normal lives, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say people who they're not saying, I know it's probably because my house burnt to the ground, right? And yeah, you should definitely go to a therapist. That's a big deal. And that's a major trauma, right?
Actually,
that's not me.
That happened to one of my coworkers 2 years ago. Yeah. But
yeah, if that happened to you, you might need some inner work on that. Mm-hmm. But if it's just, I don't know, I'm just so stressed out all the time, because stress is the precursor to anxiety. Mm-hmm. So if you're not to the point where you've again, fallen off that cliff into an anxiety disorder the way I was, then I would say, yeah, those are the people that I tend to work with. That bigger game, that's a little more, that can be really dangerous. And
Mhm.
I'm not gonna go there with people. I work with clients who actually see a therapist and work with me at the same time. And it actually works out really well. I've got some clients with some really big time anxiety, but they also have a therapist supporting them.
Mm.
So I can text their therapist and say, hey, this is what we talked about today. Is there anything you want me to focus on? And really working on like the action portion and the let's do these things while they deal with the more ingrained trauma and things like that.
That's wonderful. That's such a great idea. I wouldn't even think about that, but that's terrific. That must be very effective to have both.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Because knowing what to do and actually doing the things isn't that easy sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
I have a friend who really struggles socializing. And part of the reason is because that's been a lifelong struggle. And so over time and a lot of self-isolation that has resulted from it, as each year passes, it makes it even more difficult to get out there and interact with others. So there's always this perception by this individual that people are just being polite, that nobody could actually like me because I don't have anything interesting to say, or always putting themselves down and being a negative Nelly, for lack of a better term. And I try my best to uplift and support and remind this person of all the wonderful things they bring to the table and the reason that I'm drawn to and love chatting with this person, but it just doesn't ever seem to get anywhere. So it sounds like I need to try to get a hookup here.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And the longer she goes thinking that and not doing anything to find evidence, it's the more ingrained it gets, right? So I think that I just like to tell my clients, we're going on a perpetual Easter egg hunt, right? We're always looking for Easter eggs that are showing us what we want to see. So the cool thing about your brain is that it's designed to hear your name or mom. You go to the mall and some kid yells mom. Every woman who has a kid in the store turns around and looks, right? Or to even know your own kid. But someone says mom, you look, even though you know that your kid's grown and doing something else. But we also, if you tell yourself, gosh, you know what? I'd really like to go buy a purple Jeep. Nobody has a purple Jeep. All of a sudden, everybody's got a purple Jeep. You didn't even know how many purple Jeeps there were out there because you told your brain to look for them.
Yeah.
So it'll do it for the good and it'll do it for the bad.
Yep. I agree. I want to move on to your podcast because I have listened to several episodes and want to be able to give you a plug as well as talk about it. But I'm going to reference my laptop here so I hopefully won't get it wrong. And I'm going to summarize, but I think the one that resonated a lot with me was where you talked about when you hang on to your anxiety and your stress, it becomes that person's normal. And you said something really important that I'd love for you to summarize again with our audience is about how someone with anxiety can start to reinterpret that bad cortisol flow as it was flowing through your system.
We all have it, right? And so a lot of people will notice it, especially in the morning. People will say, I don't know, nothing happens, but I wake up anxious. And yeah, that makes sense because cortisol is actually the hormone that tells your body, hey, brain, time to turn back on. So in the morning, thank goodness we have it, or we would just keep sleeping. But if you are really sensitive to how that hormone feels in your body, that stress hormone, which is the same one as if you get stressed out at work or at home, anything like that, it's the same hormone. So if you're really sensitive to how your body feels and you just say, this is me, I feel it all the time, you start to anticipate feeling bad. So because you're waiting for the next shoe to drop, you're always like, is it going to happen? You fear your own body. You fear that feeling of cortisol when you could actually look at that and say, oh, wait a second, I know what's happening right now. Because the feeling is what's important. We know the feeling is uncomfortable. So anxiety is interesting because some people will really be afraid of the feeling of anxiety in your body, and other people will be really afraid of what they think. And to me, my answer is always, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because as soon as you recognize that feeling is there, that's what's important because that feeling, again, we go back to whether you want to call it just an emotion or just a chemical reaction or just a feeling, you've survived that feeling over and over again. So instead of being afraid of it, you need to learn how to say, oh, the alarm's going off. I get it. Just the same as if you got a text and a notification came up on your phone. I know what this is. And because I know what this is, step one, do whatever grounding technique that you found on the internet, you learned with your therapist, your coach, you made up yourself. It doesn't matter. You only need one. Use that to calm that feeling down. And until the feeling comes down, we don't believe anything we think. So it's really just like creating a different connection with your body and saying, yeah, I know it feels terrible, but I know exactly what it is. My best example of that was, I told you that for years I would just misinterpret it and I would think I was dying. I was shopping at Target a few years ago. This was well into my recovery. I was having a great day, right? Like I had Starbucks. I was at Target alone. I had spending money. It was a great day. And then suddenly I'm standing there in the aisle shopping for throw pillows and I'm like, what just happened? Like who knows? I'm 49. It was probably a hormone shift. It didn't, but the problem was that I knew what it was. It didn't matter. I was like, oh, I feel really anxious right now. So my best technique for me is always exhale for a really long time, take a slow inhale, hold on to it, exhale it again, and keep doing what you were already doing. It took 3 minutes for it to go away. In the past, I would have interpreted it as, oh my gosh, I probably had this thing happen and now this and this. I would have had a whole horror movie series written out in my head.
I'm picturing
2
you
minutes,
running
3
out of the
minutes.
store, right?
Yeah.
Yes, crying, calling my parents. Do you think I'm going to die? No, it just doesn't do. I'm not saying it feels good. And I'm not saying that it goes away forever. I would never, ever tell one of my clients, like, you'll never feel anxious again. That's not true. It's not true. Some people are more sensitive. They have more sensitive nervous systems. But when you recognize it as a feeling and you know how to take control of that feeling, it doesn't matter. And I think that's the trick.
Yeah. So when I started working as a school psychologist years ago, we had to present results all the time to various groups of people, to the public. And sometimes I knew they didn't like the results of my report because it was not what they wanted to hear. And I would have these moments when I would lose my voice, literally couldn't talk. And it took me years to figure out what was going on there. And I realized later, okay, whatever I say, nothing bad's going to happen. We can have a conversation. They're going to be unhappy. And I have to deal with the fact that I will make someone unhappy. But it took me a long time to get over that. So yeah, to your point, we definitely need techniques to figure out, number one, what is going on and how do you handle it?
And that's really one of the first things that I do. I'm like, you need to tell me a time you felt anxious. Where did you feel it? It's almost always between our throat and our hips. Almost. I've had some people say the back of their legs and their knees. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Their hands. I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso, but it's a great show about
Yes,
anxiety, right? Like great about anxiety, but Ted always does this. And it's funny because that's always a lot of times when I would start my hands. But yeah, know your own body. And if they're like, but I can't, I want them to be able to describe it as if they could use all their senses and tell me. I'm like, what color is it? Does it move? Does it not move? Does it make a noise? What does it look like? We draw it on a piece of paper. And I think really being able to get that familiar with it, that you've almost created this cute little friendly monster, just like, I loved it when Inside Out came out because I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I feel so smart right now. But yeah, turn it into a little animated character if you need to, because when you know it that well, it's not as scary. You can say, oh, here goes my brain. It will feel, and to be fair, it will feel necessary. Your brain will tell you, but this time's different. No, it's not. No, it's not.
I love that too. And this kind of makes me think about the self-care episode, which I absolutely loved, by the way. That really resonated with me because I think that when you talk about reducing anxiety, that's a huge thing to think about on a daily basis. And I guess my question for you is thinking about the role models I had in my life. And one was my mother, who was a very successful, high-performing person who now has dementia, sadly. She never gave herself self-care. And I wonder, how do I, as her daughter, convince myself that it's okay for me to do that? Because I still feel guilty about it.
Yeah. So that makes me curious. When you said that your mom was really high performing and successful, what does she do?
She was a physician. She had a private
Mm.
practice. She's psychiatry, worked 6 days a week before she came from Ukraine. My parents did. Before she was a physician, she was a pediatrician before psychiatrist and a surgeon before that. So she was a smart lady, but she had a very imbalanced life for a variety of
Hmm.
reasons. But I'm thinking in my head all the time, like, if I take time for myself, I know it's okay, but I still feel guilty. I always think, what should I be doing right now?
Yeah. I wonder what your mom would tell her patients to do.
Yeah, I think that was never a conversation. I just don't think it
Yeah.
was.
I imagine that let's say that you just have the flu, right? And they say you need to sleep, you need to rest, you need to relax, you need to drink lots of water, get
Mhm.
lots of fluids, you need to do these things, which is self-care, right? So she's telling her patients, I'm assuming she's telling her patients, these are the things you need to do to take care of yourself. But not me. I'm busy taking care of you.
Correct.
Like, I'm not going to do that. But she was telling other people to do that. What would she tell you to do?
Yeah, I can't remember. No, I can remember 1 or 2 times in my lifetime when I was still living with my parents that I was able to stay home. And the one time was she sent me to school with chicken pox, okay?
Oh,
And the
heck yeah.
nurse said, "What is going on?" And I came home and she's like, "I can't believe that I have to stay here with you. This was her." So, and the second time, I think I had a super high fever and I couldn't move but yeah, and it's just, again, I don't think she was trying to be
Yeah.
mean. She was so
No.
unaware. Yeah.
Yeah. And there really is that. It's a very generational thing,
It is.
isn't it? You will push through. My parents are 78 and 72. And yeah, there is a different expectation of behavior back then. And I don't know, and maybe that's part of the reason why we are where we are today, right? We didn't learn how to do those things. Yeah, I'm actually doing a whole presentation on this to a group of women near me, right, on Wednesday evening. And it's all about you love everybody else in your life so much, which is amazing. Please do that. Please be a great mom. Please be a great doctor or a great speaker or a great banker or whatever you're doing. But if you really want to be the best for everybody else, you have to take care of yourself because you will get sick. You will be exhausted. You will fall apart. And then what? Then you have to judge yourself for not being able to be there. And I think just remembering that in order for me to be all of these things that I want to be for everybody else, and I really want I've said a million times, I want everybody firing on all cylinders, right? Like I want everybody out there being amazing for everybody else, but that starts with taking care of ourselves. And we're taught, I think, especially as women, to be that person, be the nurturer, give. And I say yes, but that doesn't mean not to yourself too. It has to be from yourself. And I do not like cliches at all. Like I say all the time, I'm like, they're just gross to me. I don't like them, but you really can't pour from an empty cup. It's the most true of all the truths, right? I don't have anything left to give. I can't give you any money if I don't have any money. I can't give you the shirt off my back if I don't have a shirt. And I can't give you the attention and all of these gifts that I have if I give them all away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So let's turn the tables. I have at least one more question. I don't know. I could probably end up talking to you for 3
Same.
hours, and
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
have that kind of time today.
Yeah.
But so if I recognize in someone that they may be a little anxious, and I think in my friend group, it's mostly like a little bit of social anxiety where people are very quiet or we have a meetup group that we talk about all the time that you'll see people say yes, and then the day before they change their mind and they're not coming. And I know, because I've seen it, that some of this is anxiety based. So how can I, as just a friend or a supporter, help these people feel more comfortable when anxiety is what's driving them? Are there any nuggets of wisdom that I can be there for them or show up for them in a different way so that they can feel more comfortable taking that risk?
Yeah, sometimes people just have to know that they're not the only person that feels it. I think just knowing, hey, would it be okay if I go with you? Or is it okay if can I just sit here with you while you do this? And say, you seem like you might be a little anxious. It's okay. I felt that too. Can I just hang out here with you for a while? And letting them know that just that you get it sometimes is really eye-opening, especially when no matter how rationally we understand that a lot of people are anxious and this, or we have this way of telling ourselves I'm the only one. And the only one that thinks this, everybody's looking at me. This is such a me problem. And I promise you it's not. Even people who think that their irrational, scary thought is completely them and their brain and there's something wrong with them, it's not. Every person that tells me something like, oh, you're not, if I tell you what I'm anxious about, you're going to laugh at me. I'm like, I promise you, you will not be the first person to tell me this. I've never had anybody, I'm sure at some point somebody was the first person, but it always is almost in line with, I had somebody that said something very similar. And just knowing that they're not the only one that feels that way, it's okay. Yeah, we all feel that way sometimes. And that right away takes the scariness out of it. To be like, oh yeah, I felt that before too. That's really hard. How about if I go with you? Or I'll just sit here until you feel better. Especially if they're to the point where they're visibly anxious, almost to the point of panic. It's okay. I'm just going to sit here. Why don't you just sit here with me for a minute? And is it okay if you want to tell me? Ask them questions about it. And it's funny when they start talking, they'll tell you things like, I know this sounds ridiculous. I know this isn't. And so, yeah, that's what happens. Sometimes our brain makes up stories. And I really do think there's a lot of value in knowing what's happening inside your body and knowing that when you feel that way, my brain tells me some crazy stories too. Yeah. And one of the things that has helped me when I do, like if something's happening in my life, I'm raising teenagers, so lots of somethings happen in my life. They're driving, they're doing things, they're scaring me every single day. And for me to say, yes, that's one thought. That's one thought, which means there's a lot more coming, right? We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and it's usually only the ones that scare us that we hang on to.
Yeah.
Just like we have, let's say that you put this podcast up and 100 people say, that was amazing. And you get one person who's, that girl, she's an idiot. She doesn't have any idea what she's talking about. It's always the one that sticks, though. It's always the one. We discount all of that other stuff in an effort to stay safe. And it's really just your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
It was designed to keep you safe and in a community and alive. And that means don't get embarrassed. Don't be the only one. Don't do any of those things. And definitely don't put yourself out there. So your brain's working really well.
Yeah.
In a really ineffective way, but yeah.
Before we wrap up, what do you think has been the most rewarding part of your life coaching experience so far?
I have met so many amazing women that do jobs that just drop my jaw. I was a teacher, that's great. But sometimes when you're a teacher, at least for me, I would be like, I'm just a teacher. I just teach high school. It's whatever. But I am meeting so many people that have these amazing, powerful jobs. And I'm like, how are they? Like, it's so rewarding to, first of all, be able to hear what they do and to be able to help them and to just watch them go even further in their careers or even further towards, some of them want to have it's a career goal, and some of them just want to be able to sit on the couch and watch a movie with their kids without feeling like they need to have the house be absolutely spotless or have every piece of laundry done. So whatever it is that they're doing, to know that they are participating in their life and that they're able to teach other people how to calm their anxiety down, because every person that learns how to do this can go teach 10 more people. That's a huge impact. I think that alone, and knowing that it's happening from women who work out in Hollywood to women who are staying home with their kids in the middle of Indiana, that's important, because it's not only a my town problem or your town problem. It's everywhere. And I'm talking with people in the UK and Australia. I'm like, spread this around your continent, do that thing, because that's how we knock it out. And it really is. It doesn't take 30 years. It might have taken me 30 years to figure it out, but I can help you figure it out in 30 days. And if that's the case, we could knock this out. And I think the most rewarding part is actually feeling like I'm putting a dent in something that stole a whole bunch of fun stuff from me. I don't want it to steal that from other people.
I love that. That's such a great message. And thank you for doing that. That's why we do the podcast, because we want to help people get over their anxiety, their loneliness, figure out how to make better friendships, more friendships. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is
for doing what you do too, because it is such an important topic.
Yes. And we don't tout ourselves as experts. We try to wrangle in people who have that lived experience and also are dedicating time and effort to that experience to bring it to the forefront. And I'm hoping that, and from what little feedback we've gotten, the regular people talking to regular people and then connecting with others who can help us solve and find those ways forward has been really rewarding for us. I do want to let our audience know that be sure to please check out the show notes. All of Megan's details will be there. So if you want to connect with her, listen to her podcast, I think your website has a couple of really nice free resources as well. And then if you're ready to take the next step and do believe that you'd be ready for some life coaching, there's that option available to you as well. And before we wrap, Bea, do you have one or two questions to ask?
I don't. I think I'm good. Do you?
You are okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
So I think that is a wrap. And with that, we will say thank you one more time
Yes.
to Megan for your time
Yes.
today.
Great. It was really great talking with you. And I love all the stories and your openness about sharing your experiences. They were very helpful and encouraging.
Thanks for having me. This is such a great way to spend my Sunday.
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will see you next week, Social Leopards.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Social Leopards. Don't slink back into the jungle quite yet. We have 2 important messages to share. First, remember to like this episode, drop us a comment, and if you haven't done it yet, follow this show or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can reach us on social media. You can also email share@socialleopards.com to contact us privately. All links are in the show notes. We love and appreciate hearing from those who listen to the show.
Second, we want you to know that this show is not intended to be a replacement for professional therapy. If you are struggling or if you need to interact with another person, check out the show notes for resources. Thanks for listening.